What is up, Spurs Nation? It's your boy Rob from a Bucking Spurs podcast. Make sure that you guys go in and subscribe to the podcast feed. Season's about to start up. There's about to be a lot of podcasts, a lot of content coming your way. Very soon, coming soon, buckingspurs.com. Make sure you follow us on all social medias and you like and share my podcast feed and these videos. So thank you guys for all the support so far. It's been a blessing. Thank you so much. Training camp's about to start. We are days away from training camp. I am so excited. There's a lot of questions going into training camp, but I think for the most part, I love the roster that we have. I don't want to change anything. If there's players out there, as much as, my previous video on Jaylen Brown, as much as I love Jaylen Brown, I want to see what our roster right now can do. I think we have a good blend of everything. We have shooters, we have slashers, we have guys that, we have two dual threat, tough, mindseted point guards that can lead us. And, it's, if one of them is always going to be on the floor at the same time, picture that. Picture DeJounte Murray or Derek White on the floor at the same time. However that shakes down minutes-wise and lineup-wise. I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited to see the work that Bryn has been doing over the summer. He just dropped his Spurs story today, and it's all about hard work. That's why you can't not help but love Bryn Forbes, man. He earned it every step of the way. Undrafted, non-guaranteed contract for 2 years. Earned his minutes. Earned a starting spot on the San Antonio Spurs. We're used to that. We're used to finding diamonds in the rough. But we find that diamond, and it's not over. The work still needs to be done. Man, I just love how we draft character, man. Like, this is the most character filled group that, man, I don't know, we've had, man, in a long time. Of course, our big three was character personified, but Bryn Forbes, hardworking, they all have the mindset of, we shouldn't even be here. We're so lucky to be here. We need to take advantage of it and give it our all every minute that we're in this gym. That's the mindset of all the guys that we have, like Derek White, same thing. DeJounte Murray has the same attitude. Bryn Forbes, obviously. Kelda and Luka have that same I'm just gonna grind it out attitude. Lonnie Walker is like, man, I shouldn't even made it out of where I grew up, and they don't take anything for granted, and that tells a lot about your character. And that if we can get that, if we can get any player with that mindset, we're gonna mold them into something special. It just takes time, and so I'm so excited to see these guys get after it. I was thinking about it last night. In a weird way, and I've talked about it before, the San Antonio Spurs organization does not tank to rebuild. We've been kind of rebuilding while we've stayed competitive over the past few years, really knocking out of the park with our drafting, with DeJounte, Derek, Lonnie, bringing in Bryn Forbes and making key acquisitions like Rudy Gay and things like that. Like, we've rebuilt and we've retooled, I want to say, to stay competitive, but also prepare us for the future. And we're at that point in time with these young cats where I feel like a lot of other teams, like, let me give you some examples, like Denver drafted very well for about 2 or 3 or 4 years. And it took them about 2-3 years of being competitive and being right outside of the Western Conference playoffs. But then there's that year, boom, where they figure it out. They have the right coaching. They have the right system. They have the right players have developed. And it's their time. And that's where Denver's at right now. And that reminds me a lot of OKC. When OKC was young, they drafted KD, then they drafted Russ, then they drafted James, and then they brought in Ibaka and Cephalosha. They got Scott Brooks, and then like 2 years later, after those guys had played together for about 2 or 3 years, then they were something special, and then they were ready to make playoff runs and things like that. Well, that's exactly where our young guys are at the same time, while we've still stayed competitive with LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan, Rudy Gay, and all these guys. Like, we're still playoff contenders. We've always been playoff contenders. We never had to drop to the bottom to work our way up. We had Kawhi. Kawhi kept us where we're competitive for championship level up here. But then when Kawhi left or got injured, the whole Kawhi year, where he was saying he was injured and all that stuff, we sunk to here, but we stayed in the playoff race. The next year, which was last year, bringing in DeMar DeRozan, an all-star from the East who couldn't make the all-star team his first year with us. But, that can change. And so we're able to stay competitive, but all those other pieces around us were so young. We had all these pieces that were so young, and I feel like those young pieces are now at that point where I felt like I was talking about those other teams, how it took them a few years to be something special. It took OKC a few years. It took Denver a few years. It didn't take Utah long with Donovan Mitchell. It was like year one, right? And, Damian Lillard, had LaMarcus Aldridge in the beginning, and he was able to take Portland and keep them competitive as well. But a lot of these teams take a few years to get to that level, and god dang it, man, the young players for the Spurs are there. So that's what I'm most interested and most excited about, is to see the blend of youth and veteran leadership this year in particular, because we've had it for 2 years, but we've been relying on our veterans a lot. And I think this is the year we're going to switch gears and rely on our young guys to carry us from game to game. You know what LaMarcus and DeMar are going to do, but we're going to ask a lot out of Trey Lyles and DeJounte and Lonnie and Bryn and shoot, man, maybe even our rookies, Kelda and Luka, eventually come in the fold. And we're going to rely a lot on these young cats to carry us. Maybe not our rookies, right? They still need some time. But that's what I'm most excited about. I'm mostly just excited about training camp starting up and seeing all of these pieces in the gym, our old pieces, our new pieces, our young pieces. And actually, I cannot wait to hear the stories of how training camp is going and the battles that are they're getting after it, and seeing the interviews of these guys talking about each other and saying, oh yeah, this guy's doing this guy's looking good, this guy's there, we're trying to do this, we're trying to do that. And last year at this point in time, in the first week of training camp, it was a lot of like, we're not worried about, it was always about Kawhi. We're not worried about who's not here. We're not worried about Kawhi not being here anymore. We're worried about who's here, and we have to do a lot of that. But this year, Spurs Nation, this year is going to be something special, and it's going to start next week in training camp. So guys, go ahead and subscribe to my podcast, because I'm going to put my top storylines. I'm going to make a podcast on top storylines and things I'm most excited about going into this season. But you just got a little taste of it right here. I'm excited just to see the young guys take a role into leadership and take a more responsibility on getting things done the right way, instead of having to just feel like they're a supporting cast to our big guns, right? And our veterans like Rudy Gay and Patty Marco and LaMarcus. And because I think we always felt like those guys, DeMar, LaMarcus, Patty, like we're going to put the load on Rudy Gay and all them shoulders. But I feel like this year it's like we should really be able to confidently, without question marks, put the load on our young cats. I think they're ready to freaking go, man. Go, Spurs, go. Subscribe to the podcast. A lot of great content coming your way. Don't forget, go to your podcast app, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, wherever it is you get your podcast gem on. We're probably there, and if we're not, send me a message here and I'll get on there. All right, because Spurs Nation, it's about to be bucking crazy up in here, and go Spurs, go.